Where we grew up with the conflict as well, but from a different kind of scenario, and we have a less biased opinion because we don't know the pain of like being kicked out of like our homeland and such, but we know the stories and we know the feeling of almost being lost and not having a homeland, because a lot of us haven't even been to Palestine, but we have be silenced by throwing out the word anti-Semitism. And I personally really hate when that happens, because you're actually disrespecting Jews when you use a word like that, when it's not towards Jews, and you're making it about something that it's not, because you can critique Israel without being anti-Semitic.
I'm biased to the Palestinian situation, and because my parents, my dad, my mom, my grandfather, reflect me the clearer picture. They live day to day during the since 1948, and they actually live what happened there. And still, I wish that the Canadian media would go more deeper and depth within the Palestinian news to see the how's the people living there without the basic need for living.
Always puts the blame on the victim. So when they talk about, for example, Israel bombing Gaza, it's always mentioned like the in retaliation. So it's never Israel attacked. It's always Israel retaliated. Also, background. It'd be nice to give background as to when something happens, why it's happening, where did it start. That's never there. It's like they always report the end result, but not what led to all these events or things that are happening. Live a day in people's life there. Live a day in Gaza's people's lives, and then come and report and give background. Show. Don't just show them as people who are just attacking poor Israel. Okay. Show the peaceful protests that happen. There are many villages close to settlements where people on weekly basis go on very peaceful, non-violent demonstrations, and they are shot at and they're killed. And especially with the language, I always notice the language. Being a language teacher myself, I understand how the use of some modals, how the use of some verb tense, how the use of even images that accompany a piece of news, how they work to actually manipulate the reader's mind and have them take a certain stance.
They have to report in a certain way. They cannot criticize Israel, so the story is not what is actually happening. Yes, the Palestinians have, like every place has the good and the bad, but you only see the bad from the Palestinians most of the time. I would say 90% of the time.
As for example, what's going on in Palestine in terms of the illegal imprisonment of Palestinian children, what's going on in the conflict, the Gaza marches, the number of people who has been killed from both sides, it hasn't been covered in terms of giving the right moment of what happened to Palestinians. Well, I don't see that much of coverage, for example, on Palestinian or even from Palestinian people in terms of their opinion on what's going on in Palestine. And I think the media purposely doesn't mention that. The old idea that if you don't talk about something, it disappears, just ignore it. So I think the media tries to ignore what's going on in Palestine, focusing on just the identity of a different terms of authority that doesn't talk about Palestinian, ignore them, doesn't talk about what's going on there, and that's it.
Unrepresented in the news. There is a lack of voice there, and I think that they are often represented falsely. No, not at all. I think it's because Palestinians don't really have the outlet and the voice to do so, and therefore they aren't really portrayed in the media at all. I think there's a lot of bias in the media, and therefore we don't really get both sides of the story. It is often one-sided, and I think that by removing bias, by maybe giving Palestinians the outlet, the voice to share their side of the story, then we would be able to fix that problem. I don't think that much is being done well in this situation.